the hunger. Marcus hadn't slept in 4 days. Not because he couldn't. His body was exhausted, screaming for rest, but because closing his eyes meant feeling it more intensely. The hunger. The awful, gnawing, impossible hunger that had hollowed him out from the inside. The penthouse dining room table held enough food to feed 20 people. His private chef, Eduardo, had outdone himself tonight. Wagyu beef perfectly marbled and seared. Wild Alaskan salmon with a glaze that had won Eduardo 3 Michelin stars at his previous restaurant. Truffle risotto, fresh pasta made by hand that morning. A cheese board featuring rarities that cost more per ounce than gold. Marcus had eaten all of it. His plate was clean, the serving dishes were empty. He'd consumed enough calories for 3 days in a single sitting, mechanically lifting fork to mouth, chewing without tasting, swallowing without satisfaction, and he was starving. The hunger sat in his gut like a living thing clawing at his insides. His stomach should have been full to bursting. Instead, it felt empty, hollow. A void that no amount of food could fill. His hands trembled as he gripped the edge of the table. His teeth ached. Every nerve ending in his body screamed for something he couldn't name. No, that was a lie. He could name it, he just didn't want to. The first time had been 6 weeks ago. The invitation had come at Marcus's lowest point, though he wouldn't have called it that then. He'd called it ennui, called it existential malaise, called it anything but what it was. The crushing realization that after accumulating $3 billion, after buying everything that could be bought, and experiencing everything that could be experienced, he felt absolutely nothing. Food had no flavor. Wine was just liquid. Sex was mechanical. Art left him cold. He'd stood in front of a Rothko at his private gallery and felt the same mild boredom he'd feel looking at beige paint samples. Then Marcus Chen had leaned close at the yacht party in Monaco, champagne in hand, voice low. "There's a club, very exclusive. It'll make you feel alive again." "I've been to every club," Marcus had said flatly. "Done every drug, fucked on every continent. Jumped from planes and climbed mountains and hunted tigers and... Not like this." Chen's smile was strange. Too wide. Too knowing. This is different. This is the last frontier. After this, you'll understand why nothing else satisfied. Quite the price had been obscene, even by billionaire standards. Marcus had paid it without blinking. They'd flown him to Montana, no, Wyoming, somewhere remote where wealth bought silence and discretion. The club was 12 people in a lodge that looked rustic from outside and cost $50 million to build on the inside. Old money, new money. Tech billionaires and oil heirs and a woman who'd made her fortune in pharmaceuticals. All of them had that same look in their eyes. Hungry, predatory, awake in a way normal people weren't. "The rules are simple," their host had explained. "A silver-haired man whose name Marcus never learned. We hunt, we catch, we feast, the prey knows the terms. They've volunteered signed releases. Some do it for money. We pay their families well. Some do it for the experience, the glory of being worthy prey. It's all legal, all consensual, all above board." Marcus had felt a flicker of something then, not conscience. He'd shed that particular luxury years ago, just uncertainty. "What exactly are we hunting?" The man's smile had been gentle, almost paternal, the most dangerous game, of course. What else could possibly satisfy men like us? They'd given him an hour head start. The prey, a man named Michael something, former Marine, very fit, very fast, had run into the forest with nothing but a knife and the clothes on his back. Then the hunters had followed. Marcus remembered very little of the chase, just fragments, the way his heartbeat had synchronized with his footfalls, the clarity that descended like a veil lifting, the moment he'd caught the scent, sharp and metallic and alive in a way that made his mouth water. The takedown had been clumsy. Marcus wasn't trained for this, but desperation and hunger made up for technique. Michael had fought, had died hard. The knife had gotten Marcus across the ribs before the end. And then the smell. God, the smell. Every meal Marcus had ever eaten had been a poor imitation of this. Every flavor he'd ever tasted had been a faded copy of what filled his mouth when he took the first bite. It was like seeing color for the first time after a lifetime of grayscale, like hearing music after years of silence, like coming home to a place he'd never been but had always been searching for. He'd eaten until his stomach bulged, until his hands and face were slick, until Chen pulled him away, laughing, saying, "Save some for the rest of us, newcomer." On the flight home, Marcus had felt better than he'd felt in a decade. Clear-headed, energized. Awake! Finally awake! The crash had come 3 days later. Now Marcus sat at his dining table, surrounded by the ruins of a feast that might as well have been cardboard, and felt his body consuming itself from the inside. He'd lost 15 pounds in 6 weeks. His clothes hung loose, his cheekbones were too sharp. When he looked in mirrors, which he avoided, his eyes seemed wrong. Too bright, too hungry, feverish. He'd gone back to the club twice more. Each time the satisfaction lasted less. The first hunt had sustained him for 3 days, the second 36 hours. The last time barely 24 hours before the hunger returned, worse than before. Chen had explained it on the third visit, speaking casually as they cleaned their knives. It's like any addiction, you build tolerance. Need more to feel the same high. Except this isn't a high. This is what we are now. What we've always been, really. The hunger was always there. We just finally fed it, and now it knows what it wants. What are you saying? Marcus had asked, though he already knew. I'm saying welcome to the club, the real club. Not the hunting group, that's just the gateway. I'm talking about the club of people who've crossed a threshold they can't uncross. We have a name for what we are, borrowed from indigenous peoples who understood this long before white men came. Wendigo, the eternally hungry. The never satisfied fitting, don't you think? For men who built empires from appetite? Marcus's hands had been shaking. We're still shaking now 6 days later. There has to be a way to stop it. Chen had laughed. Stop? Marcus, you can't stop being what you are. You can only feed it or fight it. And fighting just makes the hunger worse. Trust me, I tried for a year. Nearly drove me insane. Now I hunt every week. Sometimes twice a week. The hunger never goes away. You learn to live with it. Well, his smile had been terrible. Live with it, wrong word. You learn to exist with it. Marcus pushed his plate away and stared at his hands. They were thinner than they'd been. Bonier. When had that happened? This morning they'd looked normal. Now the bones showed too clearly through the skin. His wedding ring, from his second marriage, the one that had ended when he stopped being able to pretend he felt anything, spun loose on his finger. His phone buzzed. A text from Chen. Hunt tomorrow night. Wyoming property, are you in? He should say no, should throw the phone away. Should find a therapist, a priest, someone who could help him make sense of what he'd become. Should turn himself in, confess, face justice for what he'd done. But the hunger was so bad, so impossibly, unbearably bad. And tomorrow night was hours away. The hunger wouldn't wait hours. Eduardo emerged from the kitchen, impeccably dressed in his chef's whites, expression professionally neutral despite the obscene amount of food Marcus had just consumed. Will there be anything else, sir? Marcus looked at him. Really looked at him. Eduardo was 42, fit, well-fed. His family lived in São Paulo. Marcus had hired him 5 years ago, paid him obscenely well, given him free housing in the building. Eduardo had a daughter starting university in the fall, a son in medical school. No, Marcus said, his voice hoarse. That will be all for tonight. Eduardo nodded and turned back toward the kitchen. Marcus's stomach growled. Not the normal growl of digestion or even hunger, something deeper. Something that came from a place below his stomach, below his bones. A sound that seemed to echo in the emptiness where his humanity used to live. Eduardo paused at the kitchen door, glancing back. Sir, are you certain? You look unwell. Should I call your doctor? The hunger uncoiled inside Marcus like something waking up. Like something that had been patient but was done being patient. His vision sharpened. He could smell Eduardo from across the room. Cologne and garlic and something underneath, something copper and warm and alive. Actually, Marcus heard himself say, standing slowly, his legs steadier than they'd been in days. There is one more thing. Eduardo turned, professional concern on his face. He took a step back into the dining room. Of course, sir. What do you... His words cut off as he saw Marcus's expression. For just a moment, Eduardo's face showed confusion. Then understanding, then terror. He ran, Marcus followed. The hunger had waited long enough. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more. Share to help the channel grow.